we are using Aries on the North Node in a coherent way, we may decide to use any energy that's being triggered in us to choose differently than before. The one who's normally meek, standing up for themselves. The one who's normally aggressive, being generous and allowing the other party to have the last word this time. This is the path.
This podcast episode is sponsored by Astrology Hub's Academy. Wherever you are on your astrology journey, we have a class that will help you get to the next level. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. You have just joined an astrological conversation that is worldwide and happening here every single week. If you're new here, welcome. Please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and feel free to dive into all of the videos that we have here on this channel. There's so much amazing astrological content here for you. For those of you who tune in regularly, thank you. Your support and participation, your likes and your shares, they enable us to get the wisdom of astrology out to more people. And for this, we are super grateful. All right, so today we're going to be talking about the astrology of September 11th through the 17th with the amazing and incredible and beautiful and soulful and wise astrologer Andrea Michelle Kennedy. Andrea Michelle is one of the astrologers on our Astrologer Connect reading platform. If you love her, head on over to astrologyhub.com/connect, book a reading, get her wisdom applied directly to you and your life. Before we dive in, I just want to make sure that you know that we are in full swing on our health, wealth, and fulfillment workshop series, and it is not too late for you to join. Tomorrow, Michael Bryan is going to be sharing his signature system for uncovering your soul and psyche within your astrological chart, helping you find the most streamlined path for fulfillment in your life. He'll also be doing a live Q&A this week. Everything's recorded. So if you join us now, you can lock in the promotional pricing and learn whenever it's convenient for you. It has something to offer for all levels of astrology student, and those in the series are raving about it so far. Go ahead and go to astrologyhub.com/workshop and check it out today. Okay. So Andrea Michelle, what's happening this week? What are the major themes that we're going to be navigating?
Awesome. Well, the log line theme for the week is wherever you are, that's your path. Another way of saying it, whatever is happening, that's your path.
Okay.
In relationship to two of the main things. One, the North Node is still in Aries, right? And it's kissing, one way of looking at it, Eris. Eris is the North Node has been dancing ever since it went into Aries with Eris, who is at 25 degrees Aries, but it's now applying to Eris, and she's the goddess of discord, which we're going to get into in a minute. But discord literally means apart from the heart, right? Dis is apart, and cord comes from cœur, which is the French or Latin from heart, for heart. So where we are apart from our heart is where Eris wants to show us so that we can come back to it over and over. And with Aries, it's always about the moment. What's here? What's now? What's next? What am I choosing? What am I choosing? Which is why so many people are having a hard time. So many clients that are coming to see me are like, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know where I was yesterday or where I'm going tomorrow. Please give me some idea. And the good news is this is a rewiring and a reworking for all of us collectively. But it does demand our attention. It demands that we really come into more of the presence and less, as we were talking about earlier, Amanda, like not as much time to process intellectually the way we're used to. But the good news of that is it allows us to see how, even when our responses and our traumas and our reactions are showing up, I'm still here. I'm still here. I am still here. That is the resilience. It's trying to knock down any places where we have to rely on our old safeties to know who we are. This period of like, I don't know who I am and who I'm becoming yet is helping to foster us in a sense of inner resiliency an inner stability in trusting ourselves in the moment. And the other energy that is wherever you are that's on your path is the Mercury retrograde that comes to a close. Mercury having been in its sign of domicile and exaltation, Virgo. Mercury is so happy here. So these energies are the two main reasons why I'm talking about wherever you are, that's your path, which is a truth. It's not just this week, it's all the time, right? The journey is the path, or the destination is not the important thing, it's the journey. We hear that all the time. But with Aries in the North Node and with this Mercury retrograde, especially with the star that it comes in alignment with, this is the main themes. So,
Ooh, that was a lot of incredible information right there. I feel like there was so many different tendrils in there. So basically what you're saying is that Aries is with the North Node, and Aries, we always hear about the goddess of discord, right? But the word discord, you just decoded for us as away or apart from the heart. So we're being shown all the ways that we've been living apart from our heart. And with it being with the North Node, are you thinking that that's basically in order to get aligned with our path, we need to get aligned with our heart?
Yes. And the path, because it's Aries, it's showing us the path is what's here. To not know how available are we open is the question, to letting our path self-arise in every moment. Letting the choices, Aries, that I'm making now, that be determining what my future path is, not something that I got from a download from an ascended master, or not something that my ayahuasca ceremony 5 years ago told me would be my path, or not what I even thought my astrology told me was my path. But literally, things are shifting so rapidly right now that the only reliable source of our path is my heart, is what is happening right now in my moment to show me, because that's and it's not going to be anything other than an encouragement or a substantiation of my natal chart. Because even if we don't have Aries North Node, it's still asking us, wherever Aries is in our chart, it's asking us where we're choosing. What are we choosing? What have we been choosing that is not in alignment with who I actually am? That's just been a deferment or a default to my safeties. And where am I bigger than, more than? My heart can encompass more of me than my safety habits.
Yeah, you also brought up this overwhelm that people are experiencing. Your clients that are coming to you and just saying, "Oh my God, it's like there's one thing after the next, after the next, after the next, and there's not that time that maybe we've had in the past to actually process or integrate what's happening." But what I heard you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we actually don't need it the same way that we used to, that there is a different way for us to actually move through the world where we don't have to be wiped out for a period of time as we're integrating and processing a trauma. Is that true? And is the astrology pointing to that?
That's awesome. It's also, in a sense, yes, but it's going to be different for everybody depending on their wiring. So because Aries is as much about choice as it is about doing. I know we've talked about this before. They're both actionable. Doing is one way of doing an action, but choosing. So it can be just, am I choosing rest right now? If I'm someone who's constantly like a type A, going, maybe the next choice, the new choice for me is to rest. If I'm someone who's too sedentary, if I really kind of wait for life to invite me with a beautiful hand invitation, and even then I need it to come from 5 different places, maybe it's time to just get up and do. So it really depends. It's all about the choice. It's like showing us, in a sense, what we've been choosing by default. And that's accelerating. And it's hard. It's challenging because it's asking us to be with what's present, with what's true.
How do we do this, Andrea? How do we have a plan? Do we have a plan? I mean, if people are looking out and they're like, well, this is great and all, but I can't move through my life that way. I can't be like, well, what is my heart telling me now? And then what is my heart telling me now? How do we actually is there a path? Is there a way to do this and have some sort of idea of where we're going?
The North Node.
Ah,
In our charts, the way that I work, now other astrologers would say something different, but as an astrologer who works in the evolutionary astrology model, for me, the nodal axis is what shows us where we're coming from our safety, South Node, where we want to have more experiences to help balance out our gifts and what we're habituated to as safety via our South Node and even the moon. So the North Node energies in our chart and its dispositor or ruler is where we want to have more experiences to really, again, bring us into more of a coherence, because then we are more of a full spectrum, because the nodal axis is always opposite. It's a spectrum. Both energies on either side of the nodes are of the same essence. They are different expressions of it.
that's super helpful. Yeah.
Right.
That's great. Yes. Okay. So look to the North Node. That's what's going to give you some idea of, well, look to the South Node to see where you're habituated and where you may be just doing things the way you've always done because you're wired that way and it's comfortable.
Yes.
And look to the North Node for clues and indicators in these kinds of decisions that you're having to make right now. Because you also mentioned Mercury retrograde ending.
Yeah.
And so are we now, if we've been sort of stalling or not making decisions because we wanted to use the Mercury retrograde time to really get clear, is this the week where we're going to be actually moving things forward? Or how do you see that?
Great question. I will speak to that when we get to that place in the week, because that doesn't happen until Friday. But I just was getting excited around Aries and the North Node. And that was more of a general sense of what this energy is. Now, again, the North Node for each of us is different, but it's about choice. It's about the instability that chaos and discord brings, but the evolutionary purpose, as you beautifully pointed out, the fact that she's with the North Node, not the South Node, this is an opportunity to choose into the future in the present. Where what we choose in the present dictates our path in the future. It dictates what kind of karma we bring to ourselves in the future. So the choices we make now are all in service to who we are becoming.
Amazing.
Hello, everyone. My name is Georgia Stathis, and I'm part of Astrology Hub's upcoming Health, Wealth, and Fulfillment Workshop series. And my portion will be on decoding your chart, overcoming your blocks to abundance. What I'm going to try to teach you, and I think I will teach you, is how your Saturn placement can point to fears that may be holding you back, which keeps you from prospering financially. The second thing we'll be covering is how your Jupiter placement, often said to be where you're abundant, can also be where you overdo a little bit or overspend. We'll also be talking about the second and eighth houses. And I will also be covering how the early family story can make a person have a view of what becoming wealthy or maintaining wealth is about. There's a lot of intricate little pieces that I'm going to share with you, as well as some really fun tools on judgments, on possibility thinking, on making reasonable requests. But you have to attend the workshop to get those tips. Find out more about the workshop at astrologyhub.com/Georgia workshop.
All right, let's go into the weekly breakdown. The daily breakdown.
Daily breakdown. Okay.
Yes.
So Monday, September 11th, we have the moon sextiling Mars in Libra before applying to Venus and Juno at 13 Leo. Mars in Libra, is not the most comfortable position for Mars to be, right? So there may be a tendency to perseverate on things that irritate us today, right? Making it easy to find fault and blame. Now, Juno is moving very, very closely in proximity to Venus since the 9th of September all the way through October 6th by latitude as well as longitude. So if we were to look at them in the sky, they would be together, not just by longitude, which is, the same degree on the zodiac, but not necessarily the same degree in the sky. So there's a real collaboration between Juno and Venus in the sky. So their exact conjunction was on the 9th. And they are so much more, their effect on one another is palpable. Juno has some leonine qualities to her, a lot of them. She's the sovereign with Juno, right? She's the queen. So there's a sense of entitlement. There's a sense of being owed. There's a sense of needing to be seen. She also has, I'm not going to go into that because that might be too much of a diversion, but themes of jealousy or betrayal or narcissistic neediness are things to look out for over the course of this week, as is the entire Venus cycle, but that's another story. But these are ways we can meet our feelings of unworthiness, because that's the only way that these narcissistic tendencies, jealousy and betrayal come around, is that we feel like we are unworthy, right? So where we discover this is a good day to discover or feel into where we are needing to be validated by others as we develop a stronger inner compass, which allows more room for our heart light to grow. So as Aries and the North Node is showing us where we've been apart from our heart, we can just keep coming back. We can just keep returning and seeing where we are available to be more of the sovereign of my own life, sovereign of my own choices. And sometimes we have to feel, part of the human experience is we have to feel the choices that we've made in the past before we can really make new choices from a clean place. We have to compost and be available to meet the choices that we made in the past. We don't even have to know what they are, but just the situating in ourselves, no matter what's happening, it undermines that part of our ego that says, I'm not going to survive X, Y, and Z. I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I can still get out of bed in the morning. There is more of me than I told me that there was, holding me in places I didn't even know that I was available. This is the blessing and the benefit for me of this whole cycle of the North Node going through Aries, especially with Aries. But this day on Monday, Venus and Juno. How are we in relationship with? How can we come back together and pair and partner Juno with our hearts? Personality and what's beyond the personality, both of them live in the heart. So the natural releasing energy of this balsamic moon assists us in moving with the release more smoothly. Though we do have Ceres hugging the South Node in Libra, so there may be some lingering attachments where needing to be right, vindicated, or owed takes precedence over choosing the humility of release. We're in Virgo season. Humility is one of the strengths of Virgo. Coming back to the basics, the foundation, the humility of release. So Sun quincunx Chiron to that date, today too, we may have a tendency to focus on our suffering, whereas the moon squaring Jupiter retrograde might be just the kick we need to just do it already. Just let go. Who am I without my suffering is something that a lot of us unconsciously orient to who we are by how much we suffer, but what we don't have. Where can we release that? Okay. So Tuesday, September 12th, the moon touches Black Moon Lilith, the true Black Moon, which is the wild card, right? At 21 Leo, and then is squaring Uranus retrograde. So we might need to get clearer on where we have shored up what's safe and clung to what seems stable versus allowing ourselves to be guided by our greater being that knows more about what we truly need than our minds can fathom or comprehend. So then we have Wednesday, September 13th. The moon The Virgo moon opposes Saturn retrograde and then conjuncts Mercury retrograde, with both in loose opposition with Saturn. So Mercury has been retrograde in his own domicile of Virgo and exaltation since August 23rd, when he stationed retrograde at 21 Virgo on a star called Denebula. Denebula is the tail of the lion constellation. Mercury was with Pallas Athena at the time. I'll speak to what Denebula is in just a sec. Remember, this is a heavy balsamic moon, so it's a good time to continue shedding, undoing any tendencies to self-sacrifice or to take on too much responsibility due to poor boundaries, because that's Virgo, as these can fuel resentment for not being recognized, appreciated, validated, all those things I mentioned before. This is also continuing the theme or invitation of releasing the need to track what's happening, because Mercury retrograde, it's our mind. It's like, it's looping. It's like, it's a welcome respite if we want it to be, to not have to track every little thing. Where can I give myself rest to receive retrograde? Just receive what I've already done, what I'm already started, just to allow it to settle in. So it's release of needing to track what's happened, to release the heavy burden of our minds and incessant thoughts. There's a Jung quote that I really wanted to share because it came up as I was preparing for this and it seems very relevant. Because it is difficult to withstand the emptiness, intuitives very often have feelings of inferiority. If they realize that the emptiness is fullness, it would be easier to bear. They would not have these feelings of inferiority and accordingly would avoid the compensatory inflation. The emptiness is an unperceived abundance, a fullness of possibilities, but it creates an unpleasant feeling, fear. And then intuitives often overfill life with activity in order to numb that fear, because they fear the possibilities that lie in the depths. It is part of the human condition right now for all of us to fear what we don't know. So we fill in the space, but it's really a fullness waiting to be mind received through just the resting, relaxing, again, coming into the centers we talked about. So Thursday, September 14th, the moon trines retrograde Jupiter before it quincunxes Chiron retrograde and swan dives into the sun for the new moon. And I talk about swan diving because I looked at it in the sky view and the moon is very close to the sun. Not every conjunction is the moon really that close to the sun. Again, by longitude, yes, but not necessarily by latitude. This moon is actually pretty close to the sun, so it's going to be that much more intense. It occurs Thursday evening Pacific time and early Friday morning for Europe. So the moon is close to the sun, again, as I mentioned, so it can be more visceral, this new moon. The new moon is at 22 Virgo on Denebula. Denebula in the tail of the lion represents diversions to the true path of fulfillment. And remember, that's where Mercury stationed retrograde. So Mercury in Virgo, making a loop retrograde, is showing us a diversion. Now, diversions can be very good things, right? To me, this is an invitation to acknowledge how far afield we go to try and fix ourselves. We look anywhere and everywhere except directly and plainly at what's right here. We suffer for a variety of reasons on the surface, but ultimately it all comes down to how much we are avoiding meeting life without our images, hopes, and projections, because the moon is also opposite Neptune, and face the inevitability of change. So Virgo can be an intensification of suffering when we forget that it's intimacy, that it has a natural affinity, Virgo, with the natural cycles and rhythms of life, just like the moon. The moon is the fastest moving object. When we forget that the nature of life is to change, when we get stuck in things, this creates a problem. And I'm going to come back around with the Mercury thing here now. So Friday, the 15th, Mercury stations direct at 8 Virgo at 1:21 p.m. Pacific time. So the station retrograde was on Denebola and Pallas Athena, which one of her manifestations is the goddess of the path, our feminine path, right? So the sun today is with Denebola, accentuating the star, showing us the true path. Again, the sun is our solar nature, the star at the heart of our lives, our center, our hearts. So for those with the courage to be humble, sun in Virgo, taking responsibility for myself and my choices is the foundation of the path. And everything else arises from there. So this ties back into Aries. What am I choosing? Am I taking on too much responsibility? That's where a lot of the intensity can be. I see that in a lot of my clients. They're feeling the results of taking on too much, taking on more than they might have been capable to handle, which we have to self-regulate with the coherence of our natural wisdom, which unless we stop and slow down and allow for the review and retrograde periods to take advantage of them in that way, we won't have access to. We'll keep perseverating. We'll keep staying in our heads. We'll keep trying to work that problem until it just creates more anxiety. So Mercury is showing us, in my opinion, that diversions aren't the problem. Are we making ourselves wrong about them? Or are we giving ourselves permission to learn from them? Mercury. Sometimes we need to start with simply forgiving ourselves and how harshly we can judge ourselves. And also, sometimes a diversion from what I tell myself is the path. Like if I'm moving along and I'm telling myself I'm doing my purpose, but something keeps coming or multiple things keep coming to undermine that, am I willing to stop and be like, wow, maybe there's something here. Maybe what I thought was my path, do I have the humility to say, maybe there is something else for me? Or maybe if I've been diverted from my path for a while into something else and I'm angry or resentful and I come back and I realize, well, wait a minute. I learned a lot from that diversion and there's actually a lot more of my energy and vitality and excitement in it than I thought there was, but I didn't recognize it as my path. This is what the Mercury retrograde is, another opportunity to be like, diversions are not the problem. It's how are we making use of them? And again, for every person, it's going to be unique how we manifest or make use of it. Is the diversion something I like to do to keep myself distracted? Or is a diversion necessary if I'm the kind of person who's like, I need to get this done, I need to focus. And the diversion is to like, give me some room to make literally breathing room for something new to show up and make itself known to my experience. But the forgiveness, especially with Virgo, because we can be very hard on ourselves in Virgo. We can really accentuate where I'm not enough or where the diversion was wrong. But where can we make the room for it to just be a learning experience? Just simply and honestly nakedly a learning experience. So Pallas Athena is also at 0 Libra, square Vesta at 0 Cancer on Friday, the 15th, when Mercury stations retrograde. Again, the Pallas Athena, so much more, but the goddess of our path, discovering our path. Squaring Vesta. Are we trying to be responsible for the social arena? Because she's also very much affiliated with social causes, especially social justice. So where are we trying to be responsible in the social arena before we clean our own house? Square Vesta, right? So this is a good day to really discover where we can devote our attention to self-care, self-honoring, and allow others to do the same for themselves. So Saturday, September 16th. The Libra moon flies to Mars by conjunction, a force sextiling Venus and Juno in Leo. Am I my own worst enemy? A question to bring to consciousness this lunation. Do I treat myself as an ally or an enemy? Do I hold people as either with me or against me with no in between? So where am I making life others, myself, black and white, one or the other, the general gist. Sunday, September 17th, is probably the most challenging day of the week because Black Moon Lilith will be with Mercury, who's still at 8 degrees Virgo. So this can be a day to watch out for negativity creeping into your thoughts. The self-doubt, the deficiency, the second-guessing, the shaming. It can also invite a bit of mental disorientation, accentuating the Mercury retrograde qualities of disorientation, which can be a sort of inner reconfiguring. So if this happens, if the latter is more your experience, see if you can simply allow it for as long as it lasts. And trust yourself that you have you, even when you can't figure it out. Literally, take stock in, this sounds so simple, but sometimes the most simple things, the most direct, are the ones that cut off our habits of trying to overcomplicate, of trying to grab back onto something. Can we just come back to the breath? Can we just come back to Mercury, the lungs? Literally, I'm breathing. I'm terrified right now. I don't know what the next step is. And yet I'm alive, and yet I'm breathing, and yet my body knows what it's doing. My body is keeping me alive. I don't have to work hard to keep me alive. This basic truth. Aries, what's here right now? I'm alive. I'm grateful for my ability to be alive and stay to whatever extent I can in my experience. So again, the mental disorientation is another invitation to just see if you can rest and receive everything you just experienced through this whole Mercury retrograde period, to really have it come into the body, Virgo, so that it stays, not just in the mind, in the body. So the Libra moon also opposes Chiron before meeting up with the South Node and opposing the North Node in Aries. So moon is activating that raw nerve that is Chiron and Aries, almost together. They're coming closer together. But in that podcast that we did on the Aries and Libra, the nodal shift, where I spoke specifically about Aries and Chiron and Aries, that might be a good thing for people to review as well. So on the South Node, which is where the moon is, the South Node is, again, another way of saying it, as we spoke about before, kind of the lowest common denominator of the sign energy. It's the basic kind of like, it tends to have a shadow element, not negative, but just kind of like, again, the lowest common denominator, like the default, not necessarily conscious, the most conscious expressions of that energy. So for Libra, what would that be? Deferring to other automatically, or being nice, or doing what's appropriate, creating harmony when things really kind of need to still be worked out. Where am I making it about being right or wrong? Where am I wanting to see the beauty of something, or basically dress something up and make it nice when there's really something else to attend to here, when there's really more of a raw, real, not everything is kosher right now kind of experience of it. These are just some words. So the moon on the South Node here, and Mars still in Libra. This can be a day where we may pick fights or seem to be the recipient of someone wanting to pick a fight with us. And if we are using Aries on the North Node in a coherent way, we may decide to use any energy that's being triggered in us to choose differently than before. So again, if we are usually a meek person, this might be a good day to stand up for ourselves. If we are someone who's normally combative and will stand up to any fight, this might be a good time to choose to just back down. Going against our own grain, going against our own habits, even if it doesn't feel good initially. Again, that Juno and Venus and that Leo, that's self-righteous. What do you mean? Don't talk to me that way, whatever. That can be that energy. Or can I just give it some breathing room and be my own sovereign and recognize I don't have to take it personally. I have more room to up-level my choice. into something that might not be comfortable, but might be more honest with or an investment in my past, an investment in the future me that I want to see more of. Again, the one who's normally meek, standing up for themselves, the one who's normally aggressive, being generous and allowing the other party to have the last word this time. This is the path. Yes.
All right. So you brought up a few things. I would love to ask a couple questions.
Please.
You talked about the diversions that might have presented themselves during the Mercury retrograde period, which started in August. So August 23rd, right? And that they're not necessarily the problem, that they may be actually pointing in a direction of where we might be wanting to put more energy, for example.
Yes.
How do we know? Like, how do we know? Is there anything in the chart that helps us be clear about whether or not that diversion is actually something we need to go towards? Or is it something that we're using to like not be on our path?
There could be. And I would say it's the direct experience. That's Aries North Node too, for all of us. Do I get excited? Am I suppressing an excitement about something because it's the wrong? I've pigeonholed it as wrong or a diversion. And where can I give myself more space to actually recognize that this diversion is something that, oh my gosh, I'm actually excited about this. I'm a little scared because it's not something I thought about, but really this is where more of if I'm really honest with myself, this is where my heart's really aligned right now or lighting me up right now. This is where I feel juiced. This is where I feel like, wow, there's something here for me to investigate. This is the trusting of the heart that I keep, droning on about. It's like my own experience is what teaches me. And my own experience, when it's authentic, will always correlate with our natal chart because it is our wiring. And the natal chart is ultimately in service to us being more of who we are, not just knowing who we are. It's how much am I living and actualizing. That's Aries and Aries North Node.
Okay. You mentioned the importance of forgiveness in this process, like forgiving ourselves for not being where we think we should be or not doing what we think we should do or all those things.
Yeah.
How do you recommend to clients that they forgive themselves? How do you actually forgive yourself?
For me, oftentimes, I can just say my own personal experience. Sometimes it requires, first of all, I have to slow down. Second of all, I have to feel where that energy is of what I'm doing to me. And sometimes it'll bring up grief. Sometimes it'll bring up anger. But it's still wrong. It's not the right thing to do. It's just, where am I insisting on something being the way it is? And it's the honest acknowledgement of what I'm doing to myself. That is the doorway to forgiveness. And the forgiveness might not be something that happens immediately, but everything we do to open the doorway to forgiveness is planting the seed for the forgiveness to come back around. Again, remember cycles. Virgo is the sign most affiliated with the cyclical nature of life. It's the time of the harvest. It reminds us that the summer is coming to an end. It's time to separate what we no longer need, the wheat from the chaff, right? What is right now for us to presence and to really devote our attention to, and what is no longer for us to devote our attention to, which again, this diversion. Oh, I was spending all my time on this path. This might be more accurate to who I'm becoming. So I can forgive myself that everything was necessary. Every single choice I made is bringing me to this moment. I couldn't have done it any other way. And that can really bring open a gratitude, a humility, and the self-forgiveness. Again, these Virgo season keywords.
Okay, amazing. So basically for this week, the overarching theme is wherever you are, that's your path. And it kind of goes into this forgiveness thing that you just brought up, just acknowledging that all the things that we've done to get to this point, those are also part of the path. And where we're at right now is also part of the path. It reminds me actually of the word ho'oponopono in Hawaiian.
I love that. Yeah.
It means literally to make right more right. So it's an acknowledgement that everything as it is right now is actually right. And we have the opportunity to make it even more right as we continue down our path. So it's just acknowledging that it's all in divine timing. It's all in divine order. And we're a part of that. I love it too. I mean, what you just brought up about forgiveness. When we're thinking that we should have done something another way, there is an element of hubris in that. Like we know better. Like we know what it should be because I don't know why we think that, but we do often. It's like, God, I should have done this and I shouldn't have done that. And it should have worked out this way. And I should be here, not there. And, I think that there's an element of, kind of like self-importance in that. Like,
Yes. This is that. Again, I'm not surprised anymore because you do that. You tapped into this whole Venus and Juno with the counterbalance of Mercury. Can we have the humility to recognize that we're constantly learning? Can we humble ourselves enough to recognize that I shouldn't, like you said, if I should, it assumes that I should know this somewhere already. Our human life, our human vulnerability is the power to unlearn Mercury retrograde, who I'm not anymore, so that I can make room for whom I'm becoming. And unless we're willing to unlearn and surrender more, we cannot really make the space to then blossom into more of who we are, to make more right what is already right.
Wow. Okay. Well, it sounds like an amazing week. Andrea, thank you so much for being our guidance for it. For any of you interested again in having Andrea Michelle's wisdom applied to your chart, your situation, decisions you're making, things that are happening in your life right now, she is available for readings and she is incredible. So you can go to astrologyhub.com/connect and just find her on that page, or you can go directly to her profile and book with her right there by going to astrologyhub.com/Andrea Connect. We'll also put those links in the show notes. And like I said, Michael Bryan's workshop on fulfillment and how to actually tune into your unique path to fulfillment in your astrology chart. His workshop airs tomorrow. We have the live Q&A with him later this week. If you can't make it live, it's okay. It's all recorded. You can check that out at astrologyhub.com/workshop. If you know you only want Michael Bryan's workshop, you can go to astrologyhub.com/Bryan, BRYAN workshop. Again, this is a workshop series. You can choose to opt in for the whole series. When you do that, you get 3 workshops for the price of 2. Or if you're just like, I know I love this teacher and this topic, I just want that one, you can just opt in for one of the workshops as well. Oh, it's been such a pleasure being here with you, Andrea Michelle. Thank you for sharing everything with us. I feel very equipped for this week and looking forward to just seeing how things unfold. It's always interesting to see what is the storyline that's going to show up with these themes and how can I apply these themes to that storyline. So thank you for guiding us through that.
Oh, I hope it's useful. I really do. Thank you, Amanda. It's always a privilege. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things I love about what you do is you pose questions for us. You pose questions for us to ponder as these different things come up. So if you're anything like me, I just basically take notes of some of the questions that Andrea Michelle says so that as things come up, it's like, ooh, I need to ask myself that question right now because that'll help me get to the answer for me, which is unique for me. It's unique for you, all of you out there. So Thank you for doing that. I think it's a very respectful way to practice astrology because it really ultimately puts the power back in the hands of the perceiver, which is each and every one of us.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for being a part of our community. Thank you as always for making astrology a part of your life. Can't wait to connect with you on the next episode. Take care, everybody.